every class that she is on. Aubrey, I'm sure you're aware you are a Zoom guru, but make sure if you have not to change your chat settings. This goes to all of our guests joining us as well. To change your chat settings to all panelists and attendees, that helps us address your questions and all that fun stuff, and follow along in the chat room. And while we're at it, I think we've got everyone. I think we're all in attendance. Not missing anybody. I think we can kick this
Is that
off.
a glass of milk?
This glass of milk. Oh, it looks like milk, doesn't it?
Oh, shit.
Metal. It's a coffee mug, so it's part metal glass.
I don't know why, but that had to be the funniest thing to see is Henry
with a glass of milk. Big glass of milk.
Mug of milk.
There's no problem drinking milk. There's nothing.
I'm not against it, but I don't know last time I saw someone actually drink like a mug.
A whole glass, like a whole mug of milk.
It keeps the coffee hot for hours. Because look, it's like glass and metal.
Okay.
Anyways, it's a Monday. I'm like this. I'm
a Monday.
Going deep on this, so it's a Monday. But let's get started. We're live on YouTube. Hi everybody.
Yeah.
Welcome back. It's been a couple of weeks, right?
Yeah, it's been a couple of weeks. Welcome back, everybody.
Exciting.
We have made it to episode number 76 of TM 101. We are super excited for another in conversation with today. They're always special. If you have yet to join us, and/or for anyone reoccurringly joining us, please make sure to change your chat settings to all panelists and attendees. To all of our YouTube channel watchers, hello. We're here following along the chat there as well. And if you have yet to join us on our YouTube channel, please make sure to join and subscribe for all upcoming TM 101 webinars and classes and things like that. As always, I'm going to pass it over to Henry Bordeaux to kick things off. And I think we've got a little tidbit from MJ to share.
Yeah, we're going to do another quick tip. We love doing these because there's lots of info that we just can't get to, but we can share quick tips with you. So do you see that screen?
Good.
Today's quick tip is it's okay to leave a gig if it's not the right fit or if it's a toxic situation. Take steps to leave responsibly.
Good advice.
Super important. Good advice there.
So thank you, MJ, for the quick tip of the week. Let's kick it off today because today on A Conversation With, we're pulling lessons and perspective from a person that we felt was a great example of the extraordinary life and career you can live in this industry when your hard work, networking, and positivity align. But just as fast as the industry can slingshot you to the top, it can also take your mental health on a downward spiral to the bottom. But that should be no surprise to anybody because we hear about it all the time. But that is, we hope to not the main lesson here today. The lesson today is about how we decide to handle it from there, how to keep your friends close, and how to get up and get back out there on the road. Because just like a few sore days after the hardest workout of your life, you ultimately come back feeling stronger and capable of more than ever. So let's welcome Aubrey Wright as we look for life lessons from his experience that spans some of the top artists in the world, like Martin Garrix and Justin Bieber, to name a few. Welcome, Aubrey Wright.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. It's good to have you on here.
It's crazy you guys have been doing this for so long now.
Yeah. What did you say, Mark? Episode 76?
We are closing in on 80 episodes. We're so close. We're so close.
Wow. Yeah. Well, we're excited to have you, Aubrey. There's a lot to unpack. So my man 5-1 is going to take us to where you started out.
Aubrey, we really enjoyed chatting with you yesterday. So let's start at the beginning. Where are you from? How did you start out wanting to get into the business and getting on tour?
I think that was kind of the thing yesterday was I didn't know that I wanted to do this. So I think that's a very important thing for people to know is like, I didn't know that I wanted to do this. I didn't know anything about it. I was a drummer when I was a kid. So I started drumming when I was 11. And that got me into the drum shop and around a bunch of mentors in that sense. So I started drumming when I was 11, grew up in Santa Barbara, and worked at a drum shop from the age of 11 sweeping the floors until I could cut and build drum sets, and knew most of the vendors that we were dealing with up until about 16. And that's kind of when I figured out things of there's these people called drum techs. And I thought it was pretty awesome because I never wanted to be in a band. And there was a whole world behind the scenes I didn't really know. And I thought how cool it is that you can help artists, but not actually be the artist and be part of this team. And so that's when I first saw things in a different light of you can be part of this industry, but not actually the artist. And it just seemed like this whole community behind the scenes, but it wasn't visible. Like you had to go find it. So I thought that was pretty cool. And, I had a skill set that brought me into it. So yeah, at 16, that's when I would say I figured out where I wanted to go with things. Yeah, that's how I started, started working at a drum shop. And that fell into me being a drum tech. I guess going into how I got my first gig, to how we kind of want to go into that. I started on MySpace. I had no idea. I don't know how many people in here. I mean,
Aubrey, can you explain what MySpace is for some of our users? No, I'm just kidding.
It was probably the first way to tell. I don't know if anyone. MySpace was like the first community network. It was before Facebook. But what was so funny about it is I think it was more music based than a lot of things, because you could go on there and there was the charts of what band had the most followers at the time. And it was huge in the music world. That's how you found out what shows were happening. Honestly, that's how I figured out who was in the industry, because back then you could put a page and I think you had 4 or 6 as a highlight of who your top friends were, which nowadays is basically putting on your Instagram who your favorite people are.
And you could put music on your page on MySpace too. You could have theme music, which I loved.
You could make it glitter, you can make it shine. People started getting into coding. I mean, it was whoever had the coolest page, to a point where the pages were so coded that they wouldn't load because your server wasn't fast enough at the time.
Yeah.
But that's how I figured out, most of what I know now and networking. So I just started hitting up everyone blindly. And I was hitting up every band from Avenged Sevenfold to, the smallest little punk bands, just saying, hey, if anyone needs a drum tech. But at the time, I didn't have an idea or a skill set of what to even ask. I didn't have a resume. I didn't know who managers were. I didn't know who other drum techs or backline people were. So to think back then to what I know now on how to network and how to message someone, it was blind, but I knew I had a skill set. So that's step one for me, was if you have something that's you're good at something, you can step forward with that. And I eventually got a gig, and they couldn't pay me except for food and airfare. But I ended up working for this band called Halifax, and they flew me to Houston, Texas. They were coming out of a tour with Scary Kids Scaring Kids. And at the time, a 13-year-old, or I think she was 14, this girl, Haley, who was in Paramore. But at the time, I had no idea who Paramore was. But then we went to South by Southwest after that. And that's when she was still playing at Emos. But that's the start. Is I did a blind message, and Heath Miller was, I think, the manager at the time. So now he runs, he works for Live Nation. So it's kind of funny how everything kind of goes full circle, but that was my first gig, drum teching.
Let's look at that for a minute, because it's amazing. You jog my memory of what it was like back then. And MySpace really was sort of a wild west of networking. And, if you could navigate it and use it, it was new and sort of connected everyone that was there. And so, but then let's talk about that time in history with, punk rock bands and what that was like, because, you and I, we met in this era of your life. And, I wanted to point out that there were so many of us that scene grew up so organically through the Warped Tour ages, and went from, underground punk rock sort of at that time to mainstream. And so I love that there was this whole sort of, as I see it, a generation of amazing technicians and engineers and tour managers that spawned from this, that were like,
well, you had Warped Tour then.
yeah.
And I really think that that's something that is so powerful to, as far as like when people say, how are you guys connected? I think how music and culture kind of connect different artists and different paths. I think that Warped Tour and the festival circuit and that whole emo scene, it's just like 80s metal and hair rock and all that, probably brought one generation of touring personnel together. I think that whole emo scene or hardcore scene brought a bunch of us together, because that was also the time of, Paramore, Taking Back Sunday. All these bands were so small, and I feel like as those bands grew, we grew with them.
Absolutely.
But it was like going to your favorite show with a bunch of friends, but we would go to Warped Tour and hang out with our people like us. It was like the Outcast got together, and even more than just being Outcast emo kids, we were Outcast technicians. I don't know if that makes sense to people, but I always felt like we were our own little circle.
No, we definitely were our own breed that came up from that era. And I think it's a testament to everybody from that time, because we learned from the ground up, learning a lot of different skills. You said that you started as a drum tech, but I know that you as you started to move from band to band in this era, started gaining more skills. And I remember feeling like you were like almost being groomed to be like a really great stage manager at the time. Stage manager, drum tech was like a common position back then that was kind of growing in the scene.
Yeah, but, you're definitely watching as you grow. We can go to the next kind of line of things, but yeah, as you're drum teching, I was so new to it, and I was so new to everything, towards like, can you grab the guitar? You grab a guitar, but then you're around the scene watching other people come into your life that are, I'm a drum tech, I'm a guitar tech. Oh, and there's actually someone that just handles bass. There's someone that does stage. There's someone, you start to see who these people are. And it's almost like you're so far back that you're pushing road cases, to where you're not even seeing the tour manager at this point, because you're with such small acts that you're not really seeing the scale of how big a tour can be, to knowing that someone is this small to who actually controls the tour. And at the time, I didn't know who did what. I just thought it was a bunch of, we were all the same. But yeah, you learn skills.
The bands were really taking off at that time too. So, for one of them that you worked with, Plain White Tees, let's talk about your time with them, because they were one of those bands that like I've known forever. And traveled around in vans for a long time, and then had a song.
I think that's something important to talk about too, is Plain White Tees were they're my first bus tour. I went to bus touring pretty quick into that sense, but we were doing Nintendo Fusion Tour, and I know we were talking about this yesterday, is there was so much branding to doing these sponsored tours, to where it would be 5 or 6 bands kind of in the same genre industry, and they would go out on these sponsored tours. AP Magazine, you had like the Warped Tour scene and whatnot. And it was my first step into really being responsible for one person, and being told, you are the drum tech, this is your responsibility, these are the drums. But I was blind to it. Craig was my first real tour manager, and I just remember getting a ticket and flying to Chicago and feeling so excited but so scared at the same time, because I didn't know if I took a cab when I got there. I didn't know that you could get drivers. Like, I didn't know anything. I just basically had a little road box, like a little travel box, with a drum key, snare ties, moon gels. I don't even think I had gaff tape. But I had the most minimal kit of things that I knew were emergency. I didn't know that you needed a whole road box at the time, but I had my skill and we went on that tour, and it was great. Hawthorne Heights was headlining it. So I got to meet a bunch of their crew. Rest in peace to, the guitarist, Casey,
Right.
who, was, I think we can kind of segue into a lot of different things here, but Casey passed away. I don't know if anyone remembers Casey from Hawthorne, but there's so many great people on that. That's my first, I think you learn all the things young. And I think I met so many people that were a community then. And there was this band, The Sleeping, on there, who was managed at the time by Christian McKnight, who still works over in New York for Live Nation. And it was tough, and it was fun though. You didn't care. I didn't realize, headliners get first load in. You wait until 11 o'clock. And so you're starting to learn timing of load in, load out, where you sit, where your gear has to sit. You can't just push your cases to the back of stage. They have to be put back on your trailer. They have to, you listen to the headliner. And that's when I think I learned so much about just the scale of, if you're a headliner, if you're support, you don't get certain lights. You're all sharing the same mic kits unless you bring it. The front of house guy isn't your guy unless you bring one or you pay him side cash. I mean,
yeah,
you're learning so many things. And but it was I had to go home. And I think that's something that we were talking about yesterday was
you have to go home.
I had to go home because for some reason, I don't know what it is, but with touring, and I was told it later on, and it's something that I tell everybody, is the one thing that will always bring you home is family. And it's not family so much in the sense of, hey, someone's getting married. How many weddings have we missed? It's usually you get the phone call and it's like, I swear, your phone rings and you know that it's not a good call. Yeah. It doesn't matter where you are in the world. You could be having the best day, but it can be your friend. It can be your family. And at the time it was my mom, and she said, Grandpa's not doing so well. And I just remember her being like, I'm sorry to do this to you, but like, you need to come home. And I'm glad I did, because I got to actually say goodbye to him. But it was my first time really feeling that feeling of what it means to go home from tour and the reason why family is so important. But I went home, and it was actually my first, we could bring it up, it was my first time going through a huge mental health problem, because I didn't know what I was going through. And I'm totally cool to talk about it publicly. We had talked about it yesterday in the prep.
Yeah, I think it's important.
For anyone out there that's ever been confused when they get home from their first tour, I checked myself into a psych ward, or into the hospital for it's a 5150. And being titled a 5150 at the time, I didn't know what that was. But my mom, she worked in the doctor field, and it was almost embarrassing. But I was working, I took 6 months away from touring because I felt like, I need to be home. But I eventually hit a point where I was working and I just broke down mentally. I wasn't happy. I didn't know how to feel. I felt alone. I felt like I was not doing what I was supposed to be doing, but I didn't know what this feeling was. And I thought I was going suicidal, but it was just me, in hindsight of it, it was me just never really allowing myself to turn off. I had gone through from coming home from tour for the first time, so my body's still activated from that, but a death in my family, feeling like I need to be home, so I'm not doing what I really want to do. But I checked myself into mental hospital, or into the hospital, into what is the suicide ward. And it wasn't until the guy next to me, you go around and you go into these circle groups every day. And I just remember this guy next to me said, something about, that's when my family found me. And it all connected to me that the mark on this guy's neck wasn't like a scratch mark or from too tight of a shirt. It was from a rope from him hanging that his wife had to cut. And that's when it hit me. I don't need to be here. It was me. It was me realizing that I just wasn't doing what I wanted to be doing. And so I went back to MySpace. And I remember that was kind of the turning point where I was like, I know what makes me happy and I'm not turning back. So
you knew you wanted to be on tour.
I want to be on tour. And I think it was a place that I felt like I could be myself. I felt like the people that I was supposed to be around were there. I felt like if I was ever going to do something outside of this bubble of Santa Barbara, this was it. I was not the cool kid. I loved music. I knew what I loved, and everything that I ever loved in life at that time, I had this shared community that was non-judgmental, work their ass off. You have fun, you travel, you get to, fuck around. You get to be who you want to be in an environment that I don't think a lot of people really realize exists.
Yeah.
So
unless
when
you
you take yourself out of that, you miss it. It's like your family.
It's true. And I think that, Aubrey, we've had conversations with the folks from Backline, and we've tried to really impress upon folks, those of us who have been doing this a minute and those of us who are coming into the business, your mental health is paramount. And that thing that happens post-tour, we call it tour drop. When you get home, that's a bitch, everybody. And poor Aubrey, not even knowing what he was experiencing, felt like maybe he was losing it and suicidal and ended up in the hospital. And I think that this is a very, very important point to make, is that there is a lot that goes into this job. It takes a lot out of you. You're gone from your people. You're hurling through space in a metal thermos, trying to keep track of yourself and everybody else that's with you. And it takes a lot out of you. And then all of a sudden you stop.
I mean, mind you, I was just a
and when you're a little guy, like you were 19 years old when this happened. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I was like 19.
Yeah.
A lot to go through at a young age.
Yeah.
Well, and I was we'll get to being a tour manager and when I really had breakdowns, but I mean, this is the thing, that was my first experience with it, but I was only a tech experiencing that. So that's why I think I always say it's okay to start from the ground up. You're going to get the skin that you need. And it's a horrible thing to tell people that you will grow thick skin. But I'm happy that I went through it at such a young age, but still at my age, I'm 33 now, I still go through it and it still confuses the fuck out of me. Your mind is a nasty thing. But it's also the level of work that we do. So, but yeah, I started, I guess we can move forward so we can get to those next breakdowns. But yeah, I started doing the blind messaging again. Once again, I don't have a resume. I could just say that I had the name of Plain White Tees. So if you can push anything, that's what I'll say is push your, what you can. But I eventually got a gig with Secondhand Serenade, and it was right back into a bus tour. And I just remember not really looking back. I didn't care who it was. I just remembered I need to take this and I need to keep going with it. So yeah, I went out with Secondhand Serenade, and that gave me the skill set of also becoming, somewhat stage manager, helping other acts that were below us. And I can't remember, but I feel like Kyle McKinnon was our tour manager at the time. I know
Kyle was with Third Eye Blind. I think you worked with him.
But I think he eventually came on. I kid you not. I swear Kyle came on to that tour at some point. I think we lost Preston, and I think Kyle came on to like a later tour. But
can you talk about this while this era was such a trajectory of where your career became?
Yeah, because this is right before I honestly kind of just started pivoting just and jumping and skipping. Right now was a great time because I started learning about in-ear monitors more. I started touching gear more. I got to um, push road cases, direct road cases. We were loading the trailers, loading trucks. So we were really hands-on at this time because we were co-headlining with Cute is What We Aim For, I think, on one of the tours. And when you're co-headlining, you're flip-flopping who's headlining one night and the other, if people don't know that. Which some nights you got to load in first, other nights you were kind of back to back. But it still was, it really taught you how to be one with a team. And I think co-headlines are actually, now that I think about it, they really help you kind of break your ego, because you have to work with people and you have to really be coordinated with the on and off. And I started, teching with other bands to be like, look, I'll help you out. So it was a lot for me because I was having fun helping everybody, and you're meeting a lot of different personalities. I don't even think that you're really meeting managers at that time because, again, you're just a tech. And techs don't really meet the managers that much. Like, now that I really think about it, you're not meeting managers until you are an assistant to a TM or a PA, or you're the TM or the PM. But it was just a crazy time because all those bands were blossoming. And I think Cute is What We Aim For was big. Boys Like Girls, all those bands were just blown up. So you're in kind of a fast, chaotic, it's exciting because you might be out on the next big tour with something, but you're meeting a lot of people because you're also doing one-off festivals, a lot of radio festivals then. But yeah, then that led into, I would say, I'm pretty sure it led into me meeting White Tie Affair. And I went out with White Tie Affair, doing, they went out on the Gaga tour. They were
Why was this a break?
support.
Why was this a breaking point for you at this point? When you
For me, it was a breaking point because, I mean, I was with them doing a bunch of one-off. They were a big radio act for Epic at the time, which is really funny because Andrew McGinnis, that's how I met Andrew McGinnis for the first time. He was working at Epic and he was running that. Now he manages, Diplo and
your laser, yeah,
all the teamwork team. It's teamwork, right?
yeah, teamwork.
Which I mean, we all know him now as him and Britton and all them, but it was going out with a tour with the first big A-list team that I think I've ever met. And the whole crew was people that I had idolized since I was young. I had Anthony Randall on there, and I had always kind of followed his path because I was good friends with Jill McCutcheon, and I was just kind of waiting to meet him and just see what he was about. And then we got a call that White Tie Fair was going to be the support for Gaga's first tour, the Fame Ball tour. And I didn't realize how big she was until we got on that tour. I think it was two semi trucks to nightclubs, and I knew nothing other than we were the support, and I was working with an incredible crew. So I started to get kind of mentored by TJ and Frank DeWap and Anthony, and I was working in the morning eventually doing load in with their team and doing sound check and all the light check, video check. I mean, they had video walls in nightclubs. They were bringing in so much extra shit to where I had to learn how to put 300 feet of cable into a 10-foot space. I mean, just, it was cable mayhem, but they kept it clean. And that was Frank DeWap's thing. They had these push carts with video wall that the dancers had to move with. And I'm telling you, it was literally, we were in San Francisco and there was I think it was like a 12, honestly, like a 12 by 10-foot stage. I mean, just the smallest stage. And she still put a kabuki up, one. And the dancers maybe had enough room to do a couple kicks and a couple spins. Yeah, just that, like stationary, right? And then she goes, "Where's my Vespa?" She has a fucking Vespa that's a prop Vespa that literally just the light turns on, it's a battery inside, and it's supposed to wheel out from back of stage. And then she gets wheeled out, stopped, parked, and then she does like a dance move on it. I just remember that's probably when you first see, you better just do it, because you never want to hear an artist like her say, "Why is it not up there?" And they go, "Well, it's only going to move 2 inches." And her response was, 2 inches or not is part of my show. And if I have to do it myself, someone's getting fired. And she said it in a really nice way, though, to where she kind of goofed about it. And I kid you not, during the show, that scooter moved 2 inches, and then the kickstand hit, and then she did her dance routine, got off it, parked, moved back 2 inches, and then during the set change, they pulled it off. But it was like, you learned a lot from those teams. Now, the change of that was I got networking skills. I got to meet people who had been doing Kiss, who had been doing Black Eyed Peas, Rihanna. And I got to see a team for the first time that was working in such sync with such skill set. I got to meet carpenters, Troy Carter. I mean, that was the first time I ever met Troy. And I think that was the first time I ever really met A-list and knowing what A-list does, the power of what a manager is when he walks down and everything stops, the power of an artist that has more money than you can imagine behind her, sell out shows, having to get security. I think Solely ended up on tour with us at some point, but it was, as long as it was very quick because we were having fun too. Yeah. But I got to work with their team, and that built trust with them, to where later on I would eventually get calls from them for stuff. But that actually segued into me being able to get my next gig.
Yeah, after this, you started working as a tour manager, correct? After that tour?
No. After this, I was still a drum tech. I got hit up from Conrad Cariz from Crew Space. And I know we were talking about this yesterday. I don't know how many people would actually remember Crew Space, but
I remember that.
I mean, I know this is a lot really quick, but kind of long, but it all adds up to, that's where I would say my turning point was. I got a call. We were in the middle of Ohio. I was still with White Tie Affair. We had just finished that tour. And it was Conrad saying, "How quick can you get to Corbin, Kentucky?" We got on a Greyhound bus that night. The band was cool with me leaving. And I am now on my way to Corbin, Kentucky, middle of nowhere, drum teching for an A-list band, having my own road box, having a Pro Tools rig to run, and meeting a team that's been together for, I think, 13 or 14 years at the time. So I was the baby. I didn't tell you guys this before, but I got fired the first night by Gary and Conrad. But because Brad, the singer, liked me, he said, "I like him. You need to keep him." So they told me, "You need to listen to everything that we do and learn, and you will be okay." So they taught me everything. And I was with them on and off for 3.5 or 4 years, learning everything from stage management to eventually I was being the TM assistant and the PA. And I can't thank that team enough. They taught me about what was important. They taught me about, it's all right. Everything's cool. Everything's cool, man. And you never yell in front of people. If you're having an argument, you do it behind closed doors. The artist is your responsibility. I learned a lot about, I mean, I don't know. I can't say some of the things I learned on that tour just out of respect to the band, but I will say I saw a lot of things that taught me how to work and cope with artists in a different way. But yeah, that was a huge point in my career, was being part of a team that was going to let me grow into every skill set I needed to jump into where I am now.
Aubrey,
yeah.
Aubrey, let's continue your story into we're in the early 2010s here. Can you tell us a little bit about you receiving a call in 2011? You got a call that completely changed your life and set you on
Yeah.
a whole different path in electronic and EDM and a whole bunch of different stuff. You moved. Can you tell us a little bit about that story?
So I think I do want to mention real quick before I went into that. Three Doors, eventually I was doing stuff in between that. I worked with Akon, which got me skills into my first, we were going to weekends in Africa, not South Africa, which we all know. I'm talking West Africa, which is chaos. And at the time, chaos, getting out of your car and you have guys with AK-47s and you're like, oh, I guess we're not safe. You're not safe. So if you ever go to Lagos and someone says stay in the hotel, there is a reason. But that was a stage management gig. That was through Anthony going back to Gaga, but trust in me, I went to do that. And then from that, meeting Bobby Schneider, and we all know Bobby, love him. And he gave me an opportunity to where I was helping him out on a PA gig. That PA gig turned into me going home, but then getting a call because I'd helped on Backline. I had a skill set that was needed. So I ended up on the Diddy tour with Bobby. And that was a whole nother set of skills. It was tough. The guy is so hard to work with. But out of that, you learn all these skills and you power through. And it was a great teamwork. And I don't know what I would do without the superior of someone like a Bobby pushing me or me helping him. And it was such a tough tour that it had you break down most of the time. Exhausted, assistants falling asleep in the elevators when they could. It was tough. But from that, met Joel Lonke. Joel brought me on to Goo Goo Dolls, which Goo Goo Dolls I was a PA for. And then that's when I got that call after the Goo Goo Dolls tour was, I think you should take this interview. And this was with Rock Nation and 360 at the time. And it was for a DJ group called Swedish House Mafia. And they needed a tour manager for one of the three guys. And at the time in the interview, I kind of fucked up the interview. And I didn't tell you guys this, but I didn't know what an EDM act was. I didn't know what DJs were. I wasn't part of that community and I didn't know how big they were. I just know I sat down in front of Jay Brown. And, when I was asked what I knew about the DJ world, I thought they were a death metal band.
And so, for clarification, Jay Brown runs Rock Nation.
Yes.
That's the other Jay at Rock Nation. There's Jay,
and
Big Jay, and then there's Jay Brown.
This is still at an early time in
Right.
EDM, obviously the scene's been around forever, but this was on the sort of the early part of the wave as it started to break around this era.
Yeah. And so to explain it, there's three guys, Seb, Axe, and Steve. They make Swedish House Mafia, but they all have their split, their solo careers. But with their solo careers, they each have labels. And under those labels, they each have 3 or 4 artists. So I took the interview. I was like, sounds good to me. And, Jay is still a mentor of mine to this day. Jay and Dean from 3, they are all still very close to me. But I took the gig and they said, you need to meet the artist. And that was kind of the seal of the deal. And I just remember right when the artist said, we had lunch and he goes, I like this guy. Let's keep him. They go, all right, you're cool with moving to Sweden. And I remember I had to pack his house. I think the next day or 2 days later, he was already flying to Sweden, put everything into Shockwave. And next thing I knew, I was going to Sweden to, tour manage Seb and then be an assistant TM and a party for when Swedish House Mafia was going out on their tour. And I didn't realize how big they were at the time. I had a tour director and it was massive beyond what I knew, but it was only going to get bigger. And I've never done 2 shows in one night. And I'd never done 3 shows in one night. I didn't know what having a private jet for the whole summer was. And I didn't know that you could go to all these different countries and the people that you meet, it's a whole different world. The connections you're making, you're not dealing with typical promoters from Live Nation, you're dealing with club owners. The promoters most of the time have more power than the government, is what you'll find in some of these countries too.
I want to ask a question real quick. Sorry to
yeah.
interrupt, but
No,
you know, like a couple of times it's your story starts with, I got the phone call, you know, and we all know that feeling, but you get the phone call. There's an opportunity on the other line that you just can't miss.
Yeah.
Every time you've taken that phone call, that opportunity, you've had to maybe leave something behind, but this one was different. It's very rare that we would get a phone call to work with a huge mega artist at the time, but let alone move countries. I just wanted to point out that doesn't happen a whole lot in our industries, ladies and gentlemen. So let me just sit in your shoes for a second, unpack for me where, like, what you had to give up to move for an artist. That's new for me.
I remember when I made the decision, I was sitting in my girlfriend's car at the time, and I was eating meatballs from Whole Foods. And I remember stirring it and being like, do I do it? And I remember, I think actually calling Ollie, who, you know, I don't know how many people know Ollie, but Ollie's one of my best friends. And he knew who they were. He's like, are you an idiot? He's like, dude, this is crazy. So I just remember making the decision, and I left my girlfriend at the time and said, you need to go do your thing. I'm going to go do mine. And it felt like it was an out for me of, I'm going to go do something that my friends aren't doing. I don't have a clue what the experience is, but it's something new. And I kind of like the music, and it was an escape, but I left family, I left friends. I went into a world that I didn't know, and I felt like that was kind of why I did it. I like to do things where people aren't touching it, because then I have something that I can share with friends. But yeah, you leave your family, you leave everything behind, and you're going to a place to where you have no foundation. The only thing that you know is what you're given. I had an apartment that, I mean, I didn't know the names of the streets. I didn't know what Kunstensgaten was or Kunstanzelgaten. Like, there's two different streets that sound the exact same. You're dealing with time zones. You're dealing with a whole new world. The way that the summer, and I don't know if you guys ever been in Sweden in the summer, it doesn't get dark. It stays bright all throughout the day. So trying to sleep when you get home from tour, and then realizing, like, you know, it's just a whole different experience. Traveling in Europe in its own, I had no idea. And you're dealing with flying through Italy, which is a pain in the ass, dealing with immigration all the time, and being American, and they have European passports. Hold on, guys, I'll be right there. Yep. Give me an hour. I mean, embarrassing things that I didn't know what to prepare for. But we had a great team when it came to the Swedish House Mafia side of it. You're starting to meet this team, and it just felt very natural and very loving. And I'll say that's part of the Swedish culture too. They're very family oriented. Egos aren't as high. There's dinners. Sundays, everyone turns off. So there's a cultural thing that I was drawn to. But I didn't realize how big things were going to get. I didn't realize how much I was going to learn, the people I was going to meet. But it was also great because I could teach my friends what I was doing, because they weren't doing it. But yeah, I left a lot behind. And it, to this day, I wouldn't be where I am. Somebody else would.
Of course.
Aubrey,
Yeah.
to chime in, man, just going from like 0 to 100 since you got that call and taking that leap of faith, and everything that you left behind, almost kind of like a way to kind of have a new chapter for you.
Absolutely.
Can you tell us a little bit about how that affected you being in a new place, and
Yeah.
how, you know, we kind of see this reoccurring, like taking on a lot, and then you come into kind of these burnout kind of phases, and how you navigate that, and how you made the decision to make certain calls that kind of led to your next path from there?
Yeah, so I would say there was a couple struggles that I was hit with really quick. Was I remember calling Gary, my tour manager from Three Doors, and saying, "What do I do?" And I remember him saying, which we've talked about is what's, the best piece of advice. And I'm like, it's the most annoying piece of advice that like Jay Brown has given me, every mentor, Anthony, everyone. You'll be okay. It'll be all right. You'll figure it out. And it's the most mind fucking piece of advice that you will ever get. But I, to this day, will tell anyone, you will figure it out. And I didn't realize at the time, but I started to take on too much. And I hit my first real burnout, the Halloween. So touring with the DJ, if you're going out to Europe in May, you'll start EDCs in like May, June, but then, and that's in the States. But then most bands kind of take a break. They go on a month tour, they spot date, right? You're here for a month, you're home for 3 weeks, 2 weeks. DJs do not stop. They do not stop, and it is very taxing. I remember going from EDC back to Sweden, and it was doing Ushuaia, at night, into a club after that in Mallorca. So it was my first experience of, oh, you can do a show until 10 p.m., get on a jet, hop an island, and finish at 5 a.m., but then you really don't go to sleep till 7, but then you're back up at 11 to do emails to do the same thing the next night. But this time you're going to Greece and then going to France, and then you might be in France for 2 nights because they add a show, and then you're driving across France to some little club at a house, and then you're getting back to your flight that you had to change, but then the artist is too tired. But mind you, I had Seb, I had to keep track of the SHM schedule because we also had the Swedish House Mafia shows going on. And then when those shows would be done, we might have to get a private club gig to go across on a jet. The 3 guys would split off and I would go with Seb. And then mind you, I also got put on to doing Alesso. One of Seb's, Alesso is still a good friend and he's doing incredible, but building an artist tour while I have this main artist and then his superior artist, but I have his label on the bottom of it doing all theirs. So it was chaos until about Halloween. I think that that's something that the DJ world, I didn't really realize. You're going from maybe February, March, until Halloween is like your first break. And I was doing anywhere from 2 to 3 shows a night, going from, just staying in the States, or we were in Europe and then flying back to the States for a one-off back to Europe. And then we had one last tour going on in between all of it. So I hit.
So I want to chat. I want to stop you for a second and just talk a little bit about the toll that this takes, that your trajectory takes on you, right?
Oh, well, that's what I was going to bring up is that.
Yeah. October? We you went from 0 to 100, as Mark said. You had a lot of sacrifices. It takes a lot of, I really want to know about the sacrifices that you made for this trajectory. And then into that, EDM is a whole different animal. So
EDM's crazy.
Yeah. So let's talk about your sacrifices for a second, specifically.
Sacrifices, I would say the biggest one's friendship. I don't know how much I was really talking to friends. I think that maybe I was talking to 2 or 3 of my close friends, but it was on my time, not theirs. So you're losing friendships, but you're also starting to see that the people around you, how impactful and how important the people around you are the closest thing that you'll ever have to family, and you really need to take care of each other. Like Curly, he was like a father figure to me.
Right. And yesterday you talked about what it was like to move to Sweden, and then sort of the shock of picking up and moving to Sweden and being to Sweden and then leaving Sweden, and the toll that took on you.
Yeah. So I think I hit that wall because I wasn't happy. And this is where I hit my first burnout, was that Halloween when I was like, oh, we're going to get a break, my body, and it's just so crazy, you can all agree to this, when you mentally tell yourself, I'm going to have a day off or 2 days off, and you can see it a month away, somehow your internal body clock starts counting down. And then as you get closer, you're getting more and more close to that mental turn off, right? Like, oh, I can stop. It's like you're in a marathon. That Halloween is when everything hit. I woke up, I couldn't really breathe. My stomach was cramped up. I had to go to the ER, and my mom and dad, I went back to Santa Barbara to go see my parents, and I couldn't get out of bed. I was so cramped up that I like shuffled down the hallway to my parents, and I just remember going to the ER, and my body completely broke down. And that's when everything, I think, I was puking, I had shit myself. I don't remember anything from 4 a.m. till I got home even. I don't remember going home. I don't remember anything until about 7 p.m. that night, because my body was so depleted, so exhausted, mentally drained. But I didn't know that could happen to you. I didn't know that your body could just collapse out of exhaustion like that. But it really woke me up to everything of, it felt good to be home and see my friends. And when you return from somewhere, you really realize how the people in Sweden, this is what we were talking about, is the people in Sweden were the people that were around me because it was like built around me. All the friends that I had there weren't friends that I had really made. They were friends that were given to me, and they were amazing. I love the Swedes. They're phenomenal people. But if you take yourself out of it and they're with their families, you have nothing. And I wasn't really going out of my way to go meet random people in Sweden. I wasn't spending enough time with people in the label system outside of work. So in hindsight, it was really lonely. And I think it was really draining me that there was stuff going on back home that I wasn't part of. And all I did was keep working and working and working. So that Halloween kind of hit everything. I wanted to be home with my girlfriend at the time, and I want to be around family and friends. And next thing you know, I get a call, you got to go back to Ibiza. Like, I kid you not, the next phone call was, you need to go to Ibiza for a one-off.
What is it? What is the trajectory of success so quickly in your career? Like, literally, for a moment you're a drum tech, and then you're a stage manager, and then you get asked to take on a leadership role as tour management, and suddenly, bam, you're out there, you're catapulted, you're doing probably three countries, never mind 3 cities in a day, but European triples are country to country to country. So what was it like for you as a human being to experience that meteoric rise so quickly? Kind of toll did it take on your person? And then that segues to, what do you implement in your life to balance it? Having experienced that, having gone through this situation, how do you balance these days? So that's a 2-pronged question. What does it do to you? And then how do you recover from it?
Well, I'll say it's a fun experience. I'll say you're having so much fun. Like, look, as chaotic as it is, I was doing shit that no one knew what was going on. So it's kind of fun to where you're like, I'm doing all this, and I could tell my friends, yeah, I was doing things that I could actually help people with, which I love. If you have something that you can help people with, it's a great feeling. I was meeting people, doing things. So there was a extreme high to it of, like being able to call Henry and be like, hey man, I'm doing this. Like, I remember I was excited to call Henry and be like, I have no idea what the fuck I'm doing, but this is so chaotic to where, dealing with different jet brokers and like so many things that were just crazy. But I don't know how I felt at the time of it. I was so busy with work that I don't even think I knew what was going on.
Yeah. Aubrey and I lived together around this time, so we were kind of, you know, we were so busy at this era in our lives. We were kind of shells of ourselves in a way.
Mhm.
And we sort of shared a bedroom that that none of us were like, I was never home and gone all the time, but then he would pop in and out. And like, you never really saw Aubrey in this era of life, but like we still lived together. But like when we saw each other, it was just heads down in our computers because there was just, you know, it was a house full of tour managers running and gunning. So it was a lot of fun. But, you know, I'd say personally, I saw you in this era and how hard it was for you to leave. But you took the opportunity and you learned so much from it.
Yeah. I think I learned everything and I couldn't fail. So I think that's how it felt. That was the first time that I really felt I cared for someone or an artist or a team so much that I was willing to put my life on the line for it. How about that? It's fucked up to say, but it didn't matter how I felt. What mattered was I have a responsibility and everyone is counting on me and I didn't want to let anyone down. And I don't think you realize at the time how you're feeling. You're not checking in with yourself. You're making sure that your artist gets home. And mind you, I don't even think I realized at the time, not only was it just an artist and his, like, you got to think when artists have families too, you're taking on all the personalities of the artist, the family, and how they're feeling. And you have to think, you start thinking the web of, if you make an action, that action has a reaction, but not just to the artist, but to everything around them and their family. But when the Swedes were together, there was three of them with three wives, with three kids, and they were all pregnant at the same time at one point with three different grandparents. So you're dealing with this person to this person to this person, and you have Amy Thompson on the tour, and so many personalities, but I learned to stay calm because the only thing that I remember from Gary and from Conrad going back was, it's all good, man. I remember how they looked, and you could keep calm, but it's like that whole picture of everything's fine and the building's on fire and the dog's just sitting there. That's been my life that whole time. But I will say to counter it, it's the people in your life. It's being able to call my mom, even if it was her being upset that I hadn't talked to her for 2 weeks, which is horrible. I would never suggest it. Keep family as close as you can, but you're so busy in that time that it's also a way for me to now understand that when I have friends that are extremely busy in their careers and I can't reach them, that one of the best things I can do is to just reach out to them and say, I hope you're doing okay. Because I know what it's like to be so busy that you don't have time to reach out to friends. And the best thing that they're going to realize, or that I hope everyone realizes, is it doesn't take a lot, and it helps you stay grounded to knowing who your true friends are and having the people that you can call when you're suicidal, having the friends you can call when it's 3 a.m, have the friends you could FaceTime when there's something funny happening on stage that you're like, you got to see this. I mean, you have to have people in your life for every possible scenario going on with you. And when you're touring, you're so mixed with emotions that your mom might help you or your dad might help you with one thing, and it's family, but your best friend might be the one that can help you get out of your own head at 4 a.m. when you're so lonely that you just want to cry. I mean, the amount of emotions that you go through on tour when you're a tour manager and you're alone, sometimes you can't think, and it's your community. And it's why I think being nice to everyone is so important, because you need to have friends and you need to have people that you can be there for them as much as you want them to be there for you. And I've seen so many of, like, the not elder, but all the older people in my life, they don't have true friends. They talk shit behind each other's backs all the time. And I don't like that. So I'm always trying to push a lot of my time, and a lot of my extra percent is into relationships. So that's my response, is I put a lot of time into relationships, and it drains the fuck out of me. But I wouldn't be where I am today without being
Thank
that
you.
person.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And Aubrey, continuing your story as we work our way into kind of like the middle of the 2010s, you end up going home and you started doing some day-to-day management with a company called Dirty South, I believe, and you were also doing some advancing for DJs on the side. So you realized you didn't have to actually go out with them to work for them. This led to you being at Coachella in 2014. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and your kind of movement into going back home and working in day-to-day management?
So yeah, I hit a breaking point with the Swedes, and I made a decision in the middle of New York, high and dry. Could have fucked up my whole career, but I didn't want to go back to Europe and start a whole new summer. I knew what it was going to do to me mentally. At this point, I was broken. I was drained. And I remember calling Ollie and saying, I was crying. I literally remember crying in the middle of New York, so just burnt out that I said I need to go home. And he started kind of laughing at me. He goes, like, then come home. And I was like, you're right. I can come home. And I said, can you book me a ticket, first class? Like, well, I don't care how much it costs. I was so ready to just quit. And it felt so relieving because I was so burnt out from doing the Swedes, and just we were going around the world on the biggest tour, and I took on too much. And so I came home. I quit, took a gig with Dirty South, DJ, did day-to-day for him. And I was doing side projects with other artists because in the DJ world, I was so comfortable with advancing with Ingrosso, but also working with the Swedes. I learned that you didn't have to always be there. You could always advance a certain aspect of things without actually being there, really understanding how minimal your touring package could be, as long as you had the skill set to advance it correctly, know who was on site and know what you needed and who needed to be there. So yeah, I was doing day-to-day with Dragon, Dirty South, and then advancing Showtech. I think I was still doing stuff with Alesso, and I was doing one-off dates with Pete Tong and Jamie Jones, and kind of filled myself up with as much as I could from William Morris and CAA and any of the agencies. I would just go down to the offices and kind of network my butt off, but they were all friends of who needs help, how can I help? And yeah, I'll do that, or got someone for that. And that kind of goes back to like what me and Henry are talking about, is like giving people work and helping people find people. And that's always been something I'm always doing, is if someone needs help, I'll find them someone, because I think it's really important. Just like I got my offer to do something, it's kind of the pay it forward process of it. And I think we put value into people that we trust. And I think I can always pick apart some good people. And so that's kind of what I was doing in that time. And that then led into through friends and whatnot. We were at Coachella, and that's when I met Martin Garrix. And that was another, so I took about a year off in between the Swedes, and next thing I know, I helped Martin with one gig, and it was through a mutual friend. His roommate was Martin's manager at the time, and I was at Coachella we had like 4 or 5 acts or something. We had so many acts, and he needed a wristband, and his agent came up to me and said, "Do you have an extra wristband?" And I was like, "Yeah." And I just remember this little 17-year-old kid popping up and going, "Hi, I'm Martin." And gave him a wristband, warned him that if he gets in trouble, it's my responsibility and I'll get in trouble. And you don't want to piss off Shaney. So he said, cool, ran away, turned around and said, "Do you want to come watch the show?" And that kickstarted me doing one-offs for him, that then led into working for Martin for about 4 years.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about that? How, taking that break, going home, working on the day-to-day management to kind of be grounded for a bit, helped you kind of take a break from the road, and then how all of these puzzle pieces just started coming back together here that led you to Martin. And then it just seemed like before, just at a blink of eye, you're back at it again, and Martin's just on a trajectory up. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I think it was a reset for me to go and kind of just have fun with life again. I think it was a refresh of meeting new agents, see who was out there. It's like a re-network. It's you're in town, and when you're not on tour, you can actually go see people that are in LA that people that are on tour can't really go see. So you're meeting people in these cities, and networking is one of the most important things you can do, but it's also just taking time to just genuinely have coffee with people. It's what I always tell everyone. The best things that have ever come out of my life have been through coffee, whether you want tea or whatever, but you don't need to go have drinks with people. Just go spend a morning, have an hour conversation with someone and just hear them out and see what they're doing. Because one, you don't know what they need help with, but two, you don't know where they'll be in the next 6 months or 6 years. But it was a refresh, and I remember someone told me like, yeah, you should just leave this tour. I won't say who it was, but when I had left, they're like, you should go work for something smaller if you can't handle this. And so I kind of did, but I was happy again. I remember that Coachella, I was running around having a fucking blast. And I was doing more of what I wanted to do and less busy work. I had multiple artists, which meant multiple managers, multiple contacts, multiple agents, and you kind of just rebuild yourself into all these different networks. And that's how I got the Martin thing. Your name is basically at the top of this little lottery, and you don't even really realize it. But it was also just when you're happy and you're your best self, you can focus on everything clearer. And people like that. People like when you are just a smiling human in an industry where everyone, may have their head down, and you're not attacking people to use them for anything. You're actually genuinely just spending time with people to see them. And so it was a refresh. It was good. I was happy, and Martin felt right. And it was another crazy turn of events, because you think that you're just going to go out for a couple one-offs with someone and then they become the biggest act in the world. But once again, you're on the seat of your pants and you're building a team. You're doing productions that you've never really looked into. You're learning design. You're learning about pyro. You're shooting pyro. I mean, I was doing so many different things. And within those 4 years, I'll just say I burnt out, where I went to the hospital 2 times. And then I was bedridden for 12 hours one time. And that was the only show I ever missed with him, was when we were in Abu Dhabi, and I had like my last burnout. But they said it would be better for me to miss 1 show than to miss 2. So, yeah, I think a big part of it is you put your all into something when it comes out. And I think that that's what I've always done. I put my heart out into the artist or the projects that I care about most, but I do it so much that I don't think about my own personal well-being. But in those cases, you learn the most.
How old were you at this time?
Shit. 26-ish, because I left Martin when I was 30. That was kind of,
You told me about that yesterday. Talk about that, because giving at 26, saying you're going to leave the road at 30 is a huge mountain to try to climb.
I always looked at my mentors and I was like, the one thing that they always said is make a plan to get out. And I kind of looked at it as, well, if I'm going to do management, I might as well do it when I'm 30. And so I didn't think that I had this goal of either hitting everything by the time I was 30, or my goals are here and that's when I jump out. But everything I had as a goal, like Martin was blowing up so quick that we were doing all the design work I ever wanted to do, working with these productions, doing every festival, going to every continent, going so much that I hit 30. And on my 30th birthday, we had headlined Pink Pop. We just finished a stadium show. I mean, it was like this surreal moment of I hit my goals by the time I'm 30. And it sucked, honestly. Like, I was grateful for it, but it was hard because I didn't expect to do everything so quick and have this experience, this beautiful. I mean, if I could give anyone like the feeling of what that was up until 30, the best feeling that you could ever have. And I don't know if you guys agree, but the moment of house lights go, there's maybe a 5-second delay to where the house lights go, and you hear just the eruption of the crowd, and then maybe the soundtrack, that the initial bass, you hear like the subs kind of turn on. That moment of that feeling that you get, that's been my life. And when I don't feel that is when I know that I need to make change. And that was my life with Martin, and I just didn't feel that moment when I was 30. It was a thing, and he looked at me we were in the stadium. I think there's a picture of it somewhere, and it's him looking up at me. And there is a picture of it, I do know that, and it says happy birthday on the stadium, happy 30th, and it's him looking up at me. And in that moment he said, does this mean you're quitting? And I said, no, absolutely not. And that was in November of that year. And on that New Year's Eve is when I told him I'm done, because I remember I called Andrew Weiss, and I asked him, I said, when do you know it's time to leave something? And he goes, when you call me and ask that question.
Yeah, that's a good answer.
That's great.
And once again, it's just like, you'll be okay. Everything's all right. His response was so instant of, when you call me, what's up? And so we tried to fizzle it out, but in March of that year, March 2018, that's when I decided to go. But at the same time, I was talking to Scooter, and who was managing Martin, and he said, come do management with me. So,
well, Aubrey, I wanted to ask you about that, because,
yeah.
One thing that's really struck me here is that you fit an entire lifelong career's worth of touring and experiences into your 20s. That's incredible. You rose up twice with two, worldwide A-list artists, and then experienced burnout on both of them. Some people are lucky if they experience that across a 30-year career, 40-year career. So, everything that you went through was so hyper realized in a way. So that's no wonder it was so intense for you,
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say, you alluded to it there, no wonder you wanted to take a 90-degree turn or a 180 and move into management at that point, since it had been such a whirlwind. So I kind of wanted to ask you about that and your experience with Scooter.
I'll say I didn't know what was right, because no one had ever. I was in a point in my career where I didn't know what was right. People always tell you that you work too hard, and I'll always tell anyone that if someone ever tells you that you're working too hard, you need to look at the people that are telling you that, because a lot of times they don't understand what you're going through. And at that point, I didn't have anyone that I could really talk to, because I was in the middle of a management thing, and I was having to pick Martin's side or a Scooter side, and that was internal conflict, because I felt like I had to do that. But it was just me thinking, if I don't go this way, then I'm stuck. If I don't go that way, then I'm stuck. I care about people. And I think that every time I've ever left something, and it sounds really weird, but you care about something when you start crying when you have to tell someone that you need to leave. And it's when I went over to Scooter, it was one of the hardest things, because I didn't know if it was right. But I went in, I was excited, and I told people, I was done with touring, I'm going to management, which I was confident in. And I was excited. I love Scoot. He's still a great mentor, great friend. And I think that the best thing that I could say, I went and worked there for a year. A couple things happened there. I learned that you need to start over again whenever you go into these careers. And it's a lot of work. It's a lot of different work. And it's a whole new skill set. So you need to be prepared. If you're going into something new, you need to either prepare yourself for it, or prepare yourself that you're going to have to learn new skill sets, but also realize what you're powerful in the sense of your networking, your marketing, your world connections. You can bring that into the new job. But I wasn't doing that. I felt like I had to start over and prove myself as a manager. But I also met all these great people out of it because it's a whole new world, new art designers, in-house designers. You're seeing how deals are structured. You're hearing how big CEOs are talking. And I love listening to conversations from, our GM, or Allison Kay is one of my, I love her to death. And I think one of the biggest things I took from that was a lot of people might sit and talk to someone and say that someone's a bad person. This goes back to me saying, if someone's telling you that you're working too much, you need to look at who's saying it. A lot of people talk trash on a lot of people that, one, they can't get to, I've noticed. So they talk shit on people that they can't ever get to or talk to. But I like to get to know people for who they are. That's why I get coffee with them. I know Scooter for who he is. I know Allison for who she is. And I know Jen for who they are. When they're not working, they're human. They have kids, they have families. And I truly believe that everyone's amazing. Maybe that's my fault, but I got to see who they were working. So when someone's busy, I can understand why they're busy. I know why they respond in a certain way. And it taught me a whole new skill set of what busy is, because they're working at such a level that it's almost like being a tour manager for 60 people or 70 people, to where you're having to think, if you make one action, it affects every single thing. They're doing it with millions of dollars, with artists on the line, with this song just went live with another artist. How do we counteract that? And it's a whole new world. And I wasn't built for it.
Yeah. So Aubrey, when you left management, you were looking to make another change. Where was your head at for that?
Well, I had done Kanye in the midst of doing Scooter. So I was doing Kanye's touring from, I think I did August of that year until end November. And I loved it. And that's kind of why I left the company. Scooter, we talked about it after, and he's like, you were doing one thing, but then when I put you into touring and you're helping Kanye doing his stuff, it's like your skill set went, it's like I give you that as a project, and management, you're trying to figure it out, but then I give you this, and it, you just run with it. So it was clear to him where I needed to go. And I took some time off, but that was a downfall. I felt lower than I've ever felt because, when you're working at a company, your computer gets taken away. It felt like I had left the touring world, so I didn't have that. I didn't have anything. I just had my good friends. So after I left Scooter, I didn't know where to go. I was so fucking lost. And it's like everything moves on, and it's up to you to figure out where you go.
Yeah, and you at that point you got a call from Grace Vanderwall and Miguel. Tell us how that was a reset for you.
That was a major reset because I got a chance to go back out and do what I love. And I was doing things at a smaller scale, and I got to enjoy building and developing an artist with the younger management, which is great. She was 15 at the time. And then I had Miguel, who's been around for years, who works with Rock Nation and one of my friends. So I had the chill, calm guy, and then I had the chaos and the fun and the development, two things I absolutely love. But it wasn't clashing. It wasn't more work than I ever wanted to do. It was perfect. I was making less money, but I was happy. And that got me back into the touring cycle, to where I got a phone call, you're back into touring, from Chris Gratton. And Chris is he's been a mentor and someone I've looked up to for many years. And he said, we're looking for someone to come out and do Justin. And so it's like, sometimes your biggest steps away are just a reset for you to figure out what you need for yourself to really find who you are again. Yeah, I jumped to Justin December, I think, of 19, which went into 2020, and we were getting set to go back out on a tour. And of course, Corona happened. But I actually was comfortable with just stopping everything again. But I actually ended up being busier than I could ever imagine in 2020. We were I mean, so yeah,
Aubrey, you have a common thread of enjoying building up an artist when it's more intimate, but then when it gets massive, you start to feel disconnected personally, and that job isn't the right fit for you. What is it about the buildup of an artist that you feel most connected to and makes you feel that where your sweet spot is as a touring professional?
I like to jump in when you need to build it as a team, because then you can kind of put the right people in place, and you can build and develop something that can be, I like teams to be positive, hardworking. I like to see if you take out something and you bring something new in, if that's really going to fix it. Because to me, your team is the most important thing. And your number one job, I think, as a tour manager or as a team in general is you're out on the road with an artist. More importantly, when you're a tour manager, you're there to protect the artist. You're there to put their name forward. I like to teach someone, you need to thank all the crew. Whether you have the worst load in or the worst load out with that crew, you're going to see them again. You might as well just thank them because you got through it. And I like to teach artists that as well, because to me, that's just the best thing that you could do is teach someone the right attitude, the right skill sets for the future of whoever comes behind us. Because I know what it feels like to start from ground up and how to be treated a certain way, but how to feel great. I think I kind of figured out what feels good and doesn't. But I hit a point to where I just don't want to touch it anymore because it becomes so egotistic. You're not even hands-on with the artist anymore. Everybody's fighting for pole position, and then you start to see the people that you need to take care of aren't even being taken care of. Your team isn't being taken care of because it's almost like it's not even your responsibility anymore because you're up here. But I'm like, those are the people I love. So I try and not lose that. And the bigger it gets, sometimes that gets taken away from you because you really do only have to focus on the artist or the accounting or your job, to where that's not your responsibility. But that's why I think I'm so drawn to, I can take it all on, and I will take it all on because I want to make sure that everyone in my team is okay. And if that means that someone is like, hey, I think I need you to come down here, I'll leave a meeting and drive down to a rehearsal. I mean, the amount of times I went to programming till 2 or 3 in the morning just because I knew my LD was going through something, had lost a dad, or had lost someone in the family. I'm not down there because I give a shit about the programming. I've seen it hundreds of times. I'm there because I want to make sure that my team is okay. And if that means being down there for 10 minutes is going to ruin my sleep schedule, I don't give a shit. My team is everything.
Aubrey, you talk a lot about mental health.
Huge. It's huge. Yeah.
And you talk about how your mental health has been compromised at times and that you recognized it. You knew you needed to leave a gig and do something to take care of yourself. And this seems to have been a regular theme for you.
Yeah.
Let's talk about how you take care of it.
Yeah.
If you had to parlay this experience into some points that you would share with an up and coming tour manager that is going to have to deal with these types of things, how'd you take care of it?
One, I think it's really knowing what makes you happy and know how you feel. I think that is a very important thing. Is to just stop and say, am I okay? Because sometimes we don't check in with ourselves. We're so busy checking in on other people that we don't check in with ourselves until we are alone. And then it hits us and we're like, the fuck is wrong? What's going on? And you can't think. My first course of action is checking in with myself. I know how I feel now. I've been through it numerous times where I'm like, oh, fuck, here, I'm going through this again. But it's the people around me. I make sure that I have someone that I can call when I'm sad. I have someone that I can call if I'm going through a career change. It goes back to where I say you need to have people in your life that you can call for different scenarios. And even someone that you just know that you can call and laugh to, that has nothing to do with your industry, because you don't want to talk about the fucking industry.
Right.
But I would say my first line of defense, in the sense of how I'm feeling, I check in with myself. Secondly, I'll call a friend and just check in with myself through them, because they know that I'm not okay. They know that during that phone call, they're like, "Are you all right? You've been busy," and your friends know where you're at. Your good friends, we have track. What is it? Find My Friends. So my friends know where I'm at, but they don't always reach out because they know that you're busy. So when you give that phone call, it's okay to open up to your friends and to be honest. And your true friends you can be honest with. So check in with yourself, check in with your friends, because you're also checking in with them and how they're doing. But exercise. Go for walks. If you don't have a gym at a hotel and you're somewhere, go for a walk in the city. But like, really go for a walk. Listen to music. Do whatever you can to get out of your own head. Now that I'm back in LA, I go to the gym every day. And I make sure that it's a consistent 5:30, 6 in the morning. I'm at the gym. I'm not with Bieber anymore, so I have that time. I can do that, but I'm not going to sit at home and start my day going to social media. I'm not going to fill my brain with negative things. So to me, it's very important that you check in with yourself, family, friends, exercise, but then it kind of goes into how you start your day and how you end your day.
And didn't you and Jim sort of bond over the similar experiences that you had in the crush of EDM?
Oh yeah. I mean, I'll tell anyone, I got burnt the fuck out. I got burnt out so bad because, one, doing 3 shows in a night is not normal. And when you get the phone call, can you do it? Sometimes you need to say, not only for you, but maybe for the sanity of the artist or for your crew, your job is to protect the artist and
Right.
your crew. But the question that gets asked by the agent or the manager is, can we do it?
Yeah.
They're not out there with you.
No.
So for me, it's like, well, yeah, we can. And they go, great, we'll call you back. The next call is, what time can you get there? How do we do it? These emails start flying to where it went from, my night was totally calm until I said, we can do it. And then it fucks up your whole week or your whole month, because that one switch of saying, yes, we can, turns into having a flip-flop crew, having dual jets.
Yeah.
I mean, but at the time you're just doing it and you go
Right.
with it.
Yeah,
And
I think we've both seen some of the best people I know, best tour managers I know, like yourself, have had nervous breakdowns doing, especially in the EDM world, because the work is so intense, and so you're always on that you never get a moment. And I've seen people left in Singapore because they couldn't get on a plane, that their assistants had to take over, that they had to say, come back in 2 days when you can function again. And that's a common occurrence.
yeah. And I think it's something that I just like to warn people of. It's not anything of, you're gonna hit it, you're gonna hit that wall, but just be careful. And if
Aubrey,
yeah,
you talked yesterday about being a connector of people.
Yeah.
How does that help you out? How does that help you?
it's best.
How does that help you preserve your mental health? And
It helps me because I get to talk to other people and hear what they're going through, which also helps me. Helping other people is probably the best thing that you can do outside of helping yourself. And I truly believe that when you sit and have coffee with someone and they're telling you what they're going through, whether they're older or younger, you can kind of identify where you have been through similar experiences, where you can say, oh, I've been there, and you'll be okay. Or actually, if you're struggling with that career and you don't know where to go next, I have a connection for that. I'm very blessed that I have art directors, managers. I have such a mass network from trying to meet new people in different genres and different areas, to where that's one of the best feelings that I get is, I know what struggle feels like, and it's horrible. And a lot of people don't really want to help people in this industry, as we know.
why do you think that is?
There's one number one. in a lot of people's heads. And I think that with touring, some people can have an ego about it of, I got to be the best, but your artist isn't going to be the shit forever. And when that artist isn't the number one, your career then it's defined by who you are and not by who the artist is. You got to realize you're not the artist. You're working for the artist. This is a job. But the people that are in the community of it, they're still there. So to me, that's it's the community of it.
Amazing. All right, over to Mark to talk about the glue.
Yep.
You're on mute,
Aubrey,
babe.
one
There you are.
of my favorite questions to kind of tie your story together, which I asked yesterday, is if there's anything that you think is kind of the glue, or a message that you want to instill in our students that you think is kind of like ties the story today together.
It's something that I'll say in my most recent working with Justin. It's very important. The glue is who's in your circle, and it's taking care of those people and checking in with those people. And Justin would come in every day and do a prayer, and he would just talk about life sometimes, whatever he was feeling. But I remember the first time I saw him, he wasn't, in the best mental state. He was prepared for a tour. I don't know if he was ready for it. And in those times, it really shows how important you can see how much someone's mental self can change just because of the people around them. So my biggest thing of glue is make sure you have some great people in your life. And even if it's just checking in with them with a simple text of hope you're great, which I do quite often, and I don't really care if I get a response, who's in your life is going to matter more than you can ever imagine. And I don't know really more than check in with, I think the biggest thing is just check in with yourself mentally. There's a couple things. Mental health is really important, and not only checking on yourself with it, but also checking in on friends. So to get through that, a lot of that is it's going to be the people in your life. My biggest mentors, I can't thank them enough. They've kept me grounded, level-headed, and they push you to keep going, but they also help you when you're lost. So the people in your life are really important. Take care of them.
I want to echo that for you, Aubrey, because, I've known you for well over a decade now, and we've had so many coffee breaks together talking about our pivotal moments in our career. And I've seen you continue to help people through their times while you go through it as well. And so I think that, it's just to lay it out for our students, when we talk so much about mentoring, like Aubrey and I are such good friends, but I consider him a mentor. It's at every level that you can find support at, whether it's your friends or somebody that's like you look at as the top of their shit. But you're right. I think that is for our students, hopefully the most valuable lesson that they pulled from today is, not just, that the glamorous life that we live out there is, as you can see, riddled with a lot of baggage that we have to carry with us. But we do have to go home, put the baggage down, repack, and then you can get back out there. There's a healthy way that we can manage this. And Aubrey's been fortunate and unfortunate enough to go through this time and time again. So, I mean, can you give us some sign of hope? Does it get easier as you've been doing this? Do you find a way? No. Okay.
No. It does. I think what you grow to learn is it's crazy how thick a skin you get, honestly. And that's something where I'll say, be careful how thick your skin gets, because you'll hold your skin so thick that you actually will be numb to everything around you. So you need to make sure that you experience life as much as you can, because when you're in this tour mindset and you step into going out to dinner with friends, you don't need to advance appetizers. You don't need to sit down and have your phone in your hand. Put your fucking phones down and enjoy life. But your skills get so good by just watching. And you'll be surprised how much you learn when you get put into situations where it's fight or flight. You can do it. And I don't mean that in any sense of, it's not going to be, a difficult task. It's going to be hard, but more than you'll get through it. And if you need help with anything, don't be afraid to ask questions. If anyone ever gives you shit for asking questions, then they suck. People will be your best friends or people will be your worst friends. But at the end of the day, you'll see each other again. So you might as well make it fun. And to anyone that just wants to get into this, I know this is, back to there's people that want to get into it. Do it. And if you don't like it, try something else, because touring isn't for everybody. And like I said, I started as a drum tech. I didn't know I was going to end up where I am. And at the end of the day, if you need to take a break because you're mentally shot, it's okay. But don't give up, just keep going. And it does get easier, but I think that what gets harder is mentally. I think that your skill set gets to a point where you can accomplish anything, but it then becomes your mindset of the mental games become difficult. Personalities become difficult. The way that you have to navigate the music industry and your career. And now you have financials, you might have a house, relationships, and pets. So skill set in your early 20s and whatnot, when you first get into the career, that's probably the hardest thing, because you need to learn skills, but then your mindset becomes the challenge. And as I continue to say, but yeah, for anyone that wants to do it, it's the best life I can imagine, and I wouldn't be where I am today. And I thank all my artists, I thank all my mentors, and even the ones coming up in the world. I wish them the fucking best. Like, I can't wait to see what is gonna. We don't know. It's a whole new world.
I wanted to pull up a point that got a little buried in amongst everything there. And there was so much. Thank you for being so open with us today, Aubrey. It's really great to hear. I think the conversation around mental health in this industry has exploded in the last year. And I think that's really, really important. But, one thing that you mentioned earlier, or you alluded to, is that not every gig is 3 shows a day flying all over the world and incredible stress and pressure. You can still find a different level in this industry if that's what you want to do, and be with a tour that's more. There are artists that have a much more relaxed pace of touring, and teams that are, no one artist, no one team, no one tour is the same. So, I think this goes back to MJ's point really at the start, that, you need to, about leaving a gig, not, there's no saying that the next gig that comes along is going to be the same as the one you're on. So if you're not happy on it, if it's causing you stress or mental, anguish, you need to move on and find your home somewhere else, because there is a big wide world of touring out there, as we've kind of covered on this. And I think you'll find your niche and you'll find your family out there. There's no doubt about that.
Yep. There's only one of you, and you need to protect that. And it's okay to leave, and it's going to be your network that keeps you going. So don't worry about the artist. Just leave kindly and keep your mouth shut and move on. That's how I've always just maintained to just keep going. I just left Justin, and I wish them they're the best team. It just didn't feel right. And it's okay. We're still friends. And that's the most important thing to me, is just, I hope everyone's great.
That's a certain level of mastery in this industry to make that move, Aubrey. So, dude, thank you so much for sharing today.
I appreciate everyone's time. I know it's going
Thank
a
you
little
so much.
longer, but
yeah, no, thank you, everybody. Thanks for joining in. And Aubrey, this was a very important lesson, and you're an incredible role model for the industry. So everybody,
appreciate it.
thank you so much. And we'll see you next. Are we seeing, or do we have class next Monday?
We do. We will be back. We continue TM 101 next week.
Rigging.
We will.
Oh, right.
Rigging.
Yeah, we're doing a spotlight on rigging class next week, everybody. So this is going to be amazing.
Important.
Awesome. Well, everybody have a safe week.
Thank you guys.
Thank you,
I
Aubrey, for
appreciate
coming
it.
in,
Aubrey.
being so revealing and so candid for us and the folks that join us each week. We really appreciate your
I appreciate
openness
it.
and willingness to share.
I hope more people can be open because it's I know it helps people. So yep. But
And the
much
wave.
love, everyone.
We hope everyone has a great week. We'll